podcast from Peach 2020, hosted by Peter Martin.
Hello, I'm Peter Martin, founder of Peach 2020, the international network for senior executives, entrepreneurs, and influencers from across the hospitality sector. Welcome to our series of Startup Hub podcasts, which will see me in conversation with some of the up-and-coming stars in the out-of-home food and drink market, the creators of some of the best new restaurant and bar concepts, the entrepreneurs driving the market forward, and the mentors and investors supporting them and their ambitions. These Startup Hub podcasts are sponsored by international law firm Bird & Bird and hospitality tech specialist Zonal. Now, my guest today is someone who's been at the forefront of the street food explosion here in the UK and has not only grown the business he now leads, but has helped numerous other entrepreneurs launch and develop their own enterprises too. Simon Mitchell teamed up with street food visionary and founder of Kerb, Petra Barran, about 6 years ago. Since then, the operation, where he is now CEO, has developed in new direction, while still keeping its core aim to incubate and accelerate the most innovative street food in London. It's opened a flagship market hall at 7 Dials in the heart of London. It runs courses, has its own test kitchen, and has branched out into contract catering for events, and recently became the on-site caterer for the National Theatre on the South Bank. Real grown-up stuff. So, let me introduce you to the person in the hot seat at this ever-ambitious venture, my Startup Hub podcast guest, Kerb's Chief Executive, Simon Mitchell. Welcome to the Startup Hub. Okay, Simon, I remember Kerb in its early days, a decade ago, as sort of a collection of food stalls on the corner between King's Cross and Granite Square. It's certainly come a long way since then. So do you want to describe the organisation of how it's grown and where it is at the moment?
Sure. As you said, Kerb started 10 years ago this year in King's Cross. Petra started by bringing together some of the best street food talent on the streets of London at a time when street food wasn't really organised at all. And Argent gave us a great opportunity for our first market at King's Cross when it was really a building site. The business grew. We took on several new markets across London, but we always had at the heart of our ethos the fact that we were a membership organisation for street food traders, and we had their best interests at heart. And that still rings true today. Over the years, we've pivoted in various different directions. We've run large events at King's Cross and around London, and branched out into catering as well, and obviously now our food hall. And nowadays we see ourselves still as a membership organisation, but more of an incubator of food businesses. And rather than just being defined by street food, we now say that we support independent food and drink businesses, and we try and incubate them and accelerate their growth.
So tell me, how did you get involved?
So I was a huge fan of Kerb's. I was actually also at the launch party of Kerb 10 years ago in King's Cross under the canopy as a guest. Big fan of the whole street food scene. In those days, it was largely driven by Twitter, and you'd find out where the next thing was through a tweet up or something similar. And sort of made myself known to Kerb and to Petra, as you do. My background was in corporate catering and events management. And I started to book Kerb traders for our corporate events. At the time, we were offering Christmas packages that were very boring. We're offering seated dinners, bowl food, whatever that is, beer, wine and soft drinks. And we actually put together a staff party for the organisation I used to work for. And it was really important to me that all the chefs attended. So we brought in Kerb to do all the food, and we brought in a cocktail company to do the bars. Everyone had a great time. We had the best feedback we ever had. And we said, why aren't we selling this? This is what people want. But we're still selling turkey dinners and beer and wine. Our people want street food. They want craft beer. They want cocktails. So with Kerb, we developed a package for Christmas parties. It was called Christmas Street, and it was all of that. Best street food in London, brilliant craft beer, great cocktails, and it sold out. It was hugely, hugely popular with corporate clients, not just the people you'd expect, the Googles and Facebooks of this world, but we had the banks and the law firms booking those packages as well. fate has a funny way of things working out. I was quite unhappy in that job at the time, and had actually, after that Christmas, resigned and was looking for my next project when one of Petra's team approached me with the opportunity to do some consultancy on how to grow their catering business that was really in its infancy at that time. I think they just made their first hire, Alana, who is now managing director of our event catering business. And the conversation progressed. Petra and I got to know each other. And then one day she turned around to me and said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Simon. I don't want a consultant. I really need a managing director." And I said, "Well, that's me." And a bit of negotiation later, and I got the job. And here I am today. We've grown the business together and loved every second. Still love street food. Still eat too much street food. Still love the businesses that we work with and the opportunities it's given me.
Let's look at those areas where you've grown, some of the constituent parts, because obviously the one which the public probably sees most is Seven Dials. How did that come about? Because that is a permanent, basically, or semi-permanent at least, a site and showcase for all those street food vendors and entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. So one of the things that was apparent to me when I started at Kerb, and my remit was to really commercialise the business, to bring it forward and to take advantage of the amazing goodwill we had and a network of traders, to put some roots down and actually build something of meaning. It became apparent that we didn't have much security. All of our markets were on very short-term agreements, being kind of placemaking and meanwhile opportunities. Very quickly, the opportunity came along for Camden Market, and we took on the West Yard of Camden Market. It's probably the biggest thing we'd ever done at the time. And we did that for 2 years. It was incredibly successful. Then fell out with the owner of Camden Market and had to leave, which was actually for the best, and it was very apparent that we needed something that was our own. We needed a home. We needed a base for Kerb that would give us some security and something as a platform for ourselves to jump off of and put roots in the ground. So the search was on for a space. I knew of what was then Thomas Neal's warehouse in Seven Dials. I used to walk past it, longingly looking in the windows, thinking, wouldn't that be a great food hall? I think around that time, Street Feast had actually announced that they were going to open a food hall in that space. So kind of didn't think much more of it. And then a few months later was notified that the site had become available. We got in touch with Shaftesbury proactively, told them that we would quite like to build a food hall in that space. And it's actually quite a long story, but over a year period of deal being on and off and negotiations, we eventually secured that site for our first food hall. And it's been absolutely incredible for us. Like you say, it's the thing that we're most famous for. We're really proud of it. It's been a game changer for our business, just having such a high profile destination. It's been really successful. We've had really great reviews. It didn't help that we opened it 6 months before the global pandemic. But, we've survived it and we're here. And we are, we're trading better than ever at the moment. So we're really happy about that.
So, do you see this as a long-term base for Kerb? So if people want to come and see Kerb, that's the place to go?
Absolutely. We have a 20-year lease on the site. So, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of our main hub in London, but it's part of our ecosystem. So it's just part of what we do. It starts with our education and training, finding new talent, incubating, whether that's on our markets or at our test kitchen in Shoreditch. And then this is kind of for our tenants, for our vendors, this is their first kind of fit site normally.
So what's the deal, as it were, with the arrangement with those individual traders?
So we try and make it as accessible as possible. The traders, the vendors pay us a commission. And typically they have a 1-year license to operate in the space. Some people will be there considerably longer than 1 year. Some people may not be there a year. We always put their needs first. So if it doesn't work out for someone, we'll try and exit them as quickly as possible in the best way possible for both them and us. And, for some people, they have been there longer. But the idea is it's a stepping stone. It's someone's first 7-day-a-week operation. They learn how to manage a supply chain, how to hire a team, and then go on to their own bricks and mortar. That's the idea. There is a stepping stone to being their own boss, having their own lease, in the same way that we wanted that security of a 20-year lease. We want that for our members and our vendors as well. So we see it as kind of that kind of interim period. Opening a restaurant is risky. We all know the stats. This is a great way of testing the water and seeing if it works for you. And we've seen some businesses that come in to Seven Dials and Camden Market before that, and just it's not for them. Running a 7-day-a-week operation is very different to a street food stall or a pop-up. And it isn't for everyone, but better to make that mistake with us in a low-risk setting than taking the plunge, borrowing money, opening a restaurant with all the associated costs, and then realising either it doesn't work or you don't really enjoy it.
Exactly. So if those people want to keep it more as a hobby, a part-time job, they can do that and keep all that enthusiasm without going down the real business route. In terms of the people who have come along the way with you and made a success, who sort of stands out? Who you claim as some of your great successes?
So at the launch of Kerb, Pizza Pilgrims were there trading with us. Obviously gone on to have multiple sites. Bow traded with Kerb in the early days at King's Cross. They obviously now part of JKS and have some amazing sites around London. Bleecker Burger. Zan came to one of our workshops and now has her burger empire in London. So there's many, and there's some great people coming through still now. Truffle Burger, Tom, who's in Seven Dials Market, also now has 2 fixed sites, one in Liverpool Street, one in Soho. He came through our incubator scheme, and started trading on our markets and now has 3 fixed sites in London. So there's been many over the years.
Because we brought some of our Atlantic Club guys there last year and last autumn, and certainly I think we sampled practically everything in Kerb. And you've got some really interesting stuff because I think you do have the only sort of cheese conveyor belt restaurant, certainly in London, if not the world as well. That's one of those standout things you've got there.
Yeah, we do. So that came about from us always wanting to have a bit of fun. So, we want to point a difference with our food hall to other food halls in London and the world. And one of the things people know about Kerb is you'll always have a fun experience, whether it's on a market, one of the events we've done over the years, or at Seven Dials Market. So we sat down with Matt Carver from the Cheese Bar. And obviously Matt started with the cheese truck as a street food vendor. He still has the truck. Still see him at festivals this summer, I'm sure. We got to know him a bit better in Camden. He's got a restaurant in Camden Market as well. And Ian, one of my co-directors, was talking to Matt about potentially doing something together. And they came up with this quite bonkers idea of a Yo Sushi style conveyor belt of cheese. And it sounds like a gimmick. And it is, I suppose. But actually, if you sit down there, it's quite a high-end experience. We're showcasing some absolutely brilliant British cheeses. The pairings are delicious. They're quite chefy. They're all prepared by the in-house team on site. All the cheese and the pairings are paired again with an amazing selection of wines that Matt's curated. And you can have a really, really wonderful experience at the Cheese Bar. But it is also something that attracts people's attention. We have the first one in the world, and that's important to us to kind of push the envelope, to try some new things and to have some fun.
Yeah, it's definitely worth seeing. In terms of helping those entrepreneurs, and you said you've, in a sense, you perhaps get them over some of the obstacles they're going to face so they can take a decision. So how do you formalise that in terms of courses and mentoring? What does that sort of wraparound look like if I was a trader coming to you tomorrow?
So, it's been a bit off and on, to be honest, over the last 2 years during the pandemic, but essentially it starts with some education programs. So we used to run a full-day workshop, live workshop, where you could learn everything there was to know about starting a street food business. And that's peer-led. So we get some of our, what we call alumni, to come back and help talk to new people about starting a business and the pitfalls. So you might see Zan from Bleecker there or Tom from Pizza Pilgrims. During the pandemic, we put that course online and made it a bit more accessible. So there's an always-on course on our website that anyone can buy at any time. And then people apply for our incubator scheme. And that runs, we actually haven't run it for 2 years, again, because of the pandemic, because we run it on the markets. But I'm delighted to say it starts again on the 16th of March. And the first market will go live mid-April in West India Quay. We put 3 people through a 3-month training program. At the end of that, they will either become a member of Kerb or they won't. But they're mentored throughout that process. They have lessons and classroom sessions throughout their incubation with Kerb. When they become a member, it's really up to you what you take from it. The most important part of being a member of Kerb is the community. So we run an online community where people share stories, share contacts, talk about events and festivals they've traded at, whether they're good or bad. They share equipment, they share staff, and really they share knowledge. But we also have a food team who are on hand to help them with things like menu costings, sourcing, staffing, you name it. We're about to run our trader summit in a few weeks' time, where all of our members will be invited to come and hear what we're doing, how they can get involved and how we can help them. Some people need more help than others. Some people take more advantage of the help that's on offer than others, but really it is a community and it's there for you to take from it what you can.
Let's talk about your latest, as it were, venture at taking a business forward and moving the contract catering, particularly the deal you've got with the National Theatre, which is it's a big deal. That. So how did that come about? Obviously, that is your background, but how have you developed that, and why did they go with you guys?
So Kerb have been in corporate catering for 7 years now. It's just not something we publicly talk about, but we're listed as a caterer on the list of most London venues, from the Natural History Museum and Somerset House to nightclubs like Ministry of Sound and Printworks. So we've grown that business. Pre-pandemic, one of the venues we do a lot of work in is Excel, and that's how we met Levy UK, part of the Compass Group. They approached us during the first lockdown about a joint venture. We've done that deal. It's a mutually beneficial deal whereby we get access to some amazing venues that Levy cater, such as Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Excel Conference Centre. We're at Aston Villa. We're at Wimbledon Championships. We're at Cheltenham Racecourse next week, if anyone, so amazing opportunities. But also, we get to tender for these big contracts that we didn't really have the experience or the infrastructure to take on. So very early in our partnership, the opportunity came to tender for the National Theatre catering. And their brief to us was, National Theatre have never outsourced any of their catering before this, by the way, that they wanted to represent London in the same way they do with the theatre. And they wanted to showcase the best independent London food and drink. And the minute they said that to us, I knew we were the right person. But obviously, to take on that scale of a venue with multiple outlets, there's 2 restaurants, there's a pub, there's kind of a mini food hall, there's many theatre bars, there's an espresso bar, a cafe, is a big ask. And it was a big ask for them, I think, a big leap of faith for them to go with Kerb, but they have done. And it's been a tricky mobilisation through Omicron and everything else. But we're there and we're incredibly proud of it. We're still opening the spaces. Not all of the spaces are open at the theatre yet, but we believe, and the theatre believe, that by the end of this year, when we've got everything open, it's going to be one of the most exciting food and drink destinations in London. And we've got some really exciting stuff up our sleeves that we will be opening with the restaurants in the coming months. So watch this space. But I think by the end of this year, it's going to be something we're all incredibly proud of. And we are absolutely honoured to have that contract.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that without a doubt. And actually, as you say, that's sort of a sleeping giant under it. The public may not know, or perhaps even the industry doesn't know exactly how extensive that catering business is. But if we look at some of the trends in the industry, and I know you've got strong views on this, is delivery has become a major part of the market. But recently, you sort of wrote that you raised some doubts about whether that's a good route for traders to go down, where other people are embracing that and looking at multi-channel. What's your view? I mean, how do you see that, and what is the focus for you, and do you think ought to be for your traders?
Yeah, so as a company, at our sites, we don't engage with home delivery. And we don't do that for 2 reasons. One, we believe that a lot of our food, or a lot of our vendors' food, doesn't deliver that well. No one has worked out how to deliver a chip. When they do, they'll be a very, very wealthy person. But a lot of food doesn't deliver that well. And we're in this world now where you can get anything delivered. Personally, I believe that the food we used to get delivered was the right food because it delivers well. Pizza, curries, all deliver really well, whereas a burger and chips does not deliver well. So it's the experience. We don't think you can replicate the experience at home. But secondly, we're a hospitality company, and we believe, Kerb was set up because of the interaction between the vendor and the customer. And we believe that's key. Our biggest nightmare for Seven Dials was you coming up to order and having to wait 15 minutes because there was a big Deliveroo or Uber Eats order in front of you, or you were, a driver with a helmet and a radio pushes in front of you in the queue. So that's why we don't engage. But I think it's a bigger thing than that. I think people, I understand why lots of small, independent and large restaurants work with these delivery companies, particularly during the pandemic when everyone was at home. But I also think that people need to go into this eyes wide open, be aware of the amazing data that they are giving to these companies. And I've always held the belief that one day these businesses will have to pivot into doing the food themselves to be profitable. Everyone knows Deliveroo doesn't make money as a company. And what have we seen in the last few weeks? We've seen Deliveroo open their first restaurant. Now, they say it's to understand the restaurants more. But if I was a vegan, I wouldn't open a butcher's to learn more about veganism. They're not the restaurant; that's their supply chain, and they, I think everyone needs to be very wary of that. If Deliveroo need to open restaurants to make money one day, and they know that in Bethnal Green the item that delivers best is pizza, they'll open a pizza restaurant. And what's that going to do to the pizza restaurant that before that was the best-selling thing in Bethnal Green? I just think there's a big risk to that, and people should be wary about giving over their data. I think the rates these companies charge make it very hard to make money. And it's fine to do it, but do it with your eyes wide open and be careful with your data and make sure that you're leveraging it for your own benefit and you don't impact your core customer.
But talking about sort of consumer changes, particularly over the last 2 years and pandemic, the population as a whole, and not just young people, have become more digital savvy. We live on our mobile phones. We order all the time that way. It's become part of our life, and also convenience as well, because a lot of us have been at home. So in terms of those trends, how are you incorporating that into sort of the Kerb experience? I mean, how is digital playing a part?
I mean, the main way we've embraced digital is through our online courses, by putting them online. It's probably something we should have done years ago, but we didn't. We were forced to do it by the pandemic just to keep the wheels turning. We kind of made ourselves a bit of an aggregator during the pandemic by showcasing all of our vendors that did offer delivery or a meal kit or something similar. But for us, that's not where we are. We are all about the experience. And I think, all of our members are free to do whatever they want. And meal kits is not an area we touch on ourselves, but they're free to do that. Same as home delivery and dark kitchens. So we haven't really embraced that. We will always be about the experience and people coming to us for a hospitality experience. We don't want to be a digital tech company. We're not interested in getting involved in dark kitchens or delivery. The one place we have embraced tech is at Seven Dials, with ordering on your phone and having drinks, etc., delivered to your table. But again, we found that not all the tech was good for us. We actually had more complaints when you were ordering food to your table using your phone than we did when you were going up to the counter with a buzzer. So we've actually reverted back to that system for ordering food. We think that people like that experience more. We think that, engaging with that vendor over your food rather than a member of staff who's just serving it is a better experience. So we've actually lost some of the tech already that we bought in during the pandemic.
That's interesting, actually. So in a sense, the convenience is the fact that you are a food hall and your customers sit in the middle and make the choice and can walk a few yards and make the order.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, everyone finds their niche. And for some people, technology and digital and home delivery is a great way to grow your business and a great way to expand, and sometimes quite a low barrier to entry, low cost business. We are a hospitality business, in terms of our public facing persona. And we really cherish that. And you might say I might regret this in years to come when we didn't evolve, but we think that customer interaction, that face-to-face interaction, that transaction is really important, and we don't ever want to lose that.
But if you look at the other big issues, it tends to be around food at the moment. One is obviously the green issues of provenance, but also, let's face it, we've got a big issue on pricing coming out of the pandemic, and also geopolitical issues are not doing anybody any favors in any sense. I don't want to diminish the impact of that on the world, but there are pressures on being in hospitality. How are your partners facing up to that? And what are do they have any particular issues in terms of how they're sourcing, keeping those green credentials?
Yeah. So two things. I think on the pricing and the sourcing, prices are going up. And these prices will have to be passed on to the customer, and they should be passed on to the customer. I think we've made food too cheap and too convenient for too long. And I actually think there's a whole education piece that needs to happen now, where people really value and appreciate the food they're eating and the choices they make, and that a well-sourced, sustainable food option is going to cost you more than the badly sourced, cheaper fast food alternative. And I think that's an education piece. And we won't stand in the way of our members bringing forward price increases that are reasonable. I think that's the first thing. Sustainability, again, is a massive challenge, and we're kind of not struggling, but kind of trying to get our heads round how far we want to get involved with our members' businesses. We don't want to tell them what to do. I think, in the next year, it's going to be more of an education piece for our members of, what can we do? What should we be doing? But ultimately, it's up to them. What we do, we do the drinks ourselves in our food hall. So we buy as local as possible. So we support local independent businesses. Our beer is all made in South London by Gypsy Hill. Our spirits are made in East London by East London Liquor Company. The majority of our soft drinks are made by Square Root in East London as well. One of the interesting things with that was when everyone had problems with deliveries, we didn't, because everything was coming from London. And if there was a problem, we just sent our van to go and get it. So we really avoided that problem. But there are multiple challenges facing every food business. And, we need to value our food better. We need to appreciate where it comes from. We need to appreciate the price of it. And we need to educate customers that good food, well-sourced food, is going to cost more now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you talk about your members meeting together. That's part of that collective in a sense. I mean, so obviously they can share best practice and views. I mean, what's the sort of views coming out of your traders about these issues? I mean, how, is green a big issue for them? What are the big issues that they're bringing back to you?
The biggest issue is survival. Coming out of the pandemic, let's get our business back up and running again. When are our markets opening? Where are the opportunities? But there are price issues. We dictate the price a lot for our event catering, and we've had a lot of challenges from our members about that price, and we've had to look into that and charge our customers more so we can pass that on to our members. So price is a big one. The squeeze on our members from fuel prices going up, and food prices going up. So I think cost and profitability is, if I'm being honest, the biggest challenge right now rather than sustainability. But sustainability is absolutely something on the horizon that we need to be dealing with and are starting to deal with. But coming out of the pandemic for these small micro businesses, I think it's all about survival this year. It's about getting back to doing what you do best, making some money, or trying to make some money, keeping your head above water, looking at how you grow your business in a sustainable way going forward. But for the next 12 months, it's kind of let's get back, let's survive. And then we can talk about thriving and operating in a better way.
So it's not easy looking forward then. But obviously, I mean, you've got a 20-year lease here on 7 dials, so you've got some long-term contracts. But I suppose if you are looking forward, you're right, it's about survival, getting through the next few months, few years with all the challenges that's got. But how optimistic are you about street food? I mean, your business is evolving in different ways. Is the public going to sort of change its taste and attitude to street food? Does it want something more? And also, I suppose the other question is, have you still got that stream of entrepreneurs who want to set up food and drink businesses?
Yes, to answer the last part of your question first, absolutely. We're inundated with membership applications. What we saw after the banking crisis was a huge influx of new applications as people either lost their jobs or left their jobs and wanted a change in career. I think coming out of the pandemic, the hospitality industry was hit hardest, as we all know. Lots of chefs are available, well, maybe not available now, but lots of people have pivoted, but lots of people have questioned what they do. So we do see over the next 6 to 12 months, a lot more people turning to us for a different kind of opportunity to start again, maybe if they've lost their business. Street food doesn't necessarily define us anymore. I think the world's changed. It used to be all about street food markets, but now there are various other entry levels into food rather than just jumping into a restaurant. Pub takeovers, lots of pub kitchens now put themselves over to start up businesses. One of our newest members from the Ashes have never traded on the street because they popped up in the pandemic from a hatch in Hackney. So we want to be there for those people as well, which is why we've opened the test kitchen in Shoreditch, so we can showcase new businesses that don't have a gazebo or a van and can't trade on the street. But I think there's still a huge appetite for it. I think people coming out of the pandemic really want to support good, local, independent businesses. And I was at the relaunch of our market at the Gherkin 2 weeks ago, and it was unbelievable how many people had come out to support us. All the Pretts, all the Leons, all the everything around that are there every day. But we were absolutely swamped with people coming out of their offices because they want that different experience, that pop-up experience. We saw a huge spike in traffic to our website of people coming to see what's for lunch today, that variety, and I think people will always want that. I think people will always want to see something that's new, something that's innovative, something that's owned and made by the people that are serving them. I think that's not going anywhere anytime soon. We've always seen our incubator days in West India Quay be the most popular day of the week because people want to see what's new. They want to experience something new. They want to be the first.
I think you're right. And I think that that drive from consumers remains. And I think that staying local is a trend which was adopted over lockdown, which I think is sticking. Simon Mitchell, thanks so much for your time and contributing to our Startup Hub podcast.
Thank you, Peter.
This series of podcasts is sponsored by Bird & Bird and Zonal. The Peach podcast is always free to listen to. To find us, search Peach 2020, the Startup Hub, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or in any app that supports podcasts. All our podcasts will be uploaded to our YouTube channel too. Now don't forget to like, rate and subscribe to make sure you don't miss our future episodes.
Podcast from Peach 2020, hosted by Peter Martin.